Flash! It's a Super Boomerang. Flash! The first in America.
Gordon's alive. Give me the remote control.
Flash! Bad capacity. Flash! Its queue is terrible. Flash vertical velocity at Six Flags Great Adventure is a big deal. This is the first new generation Vekoma thrill coaster to open in America, and it's the first Super Boomerang to open in the Western Hemisphere. The original Boomerang coaster was a massive success for Vekoma, with over 50 installations worldwide. So could this new, taller, faster and longer version be hoping to mirror that success? With a tight layout featuring no less than 7 launches or boosts, a top speed of 59 miles an hour and forces up to 4 positive G, it's an impressive ride on paper, but I'm sure you'll want to know what it's really like to ride, so let's get started. I'm Rollercoaster David, and this is my review of the Flash Vertical Velocity. Starting off with the layout, Flash begins with a forwards launch partway up the first element. You then drop backwards and are boosted up a vertical rollback section, where at the top you unsurprisingly roll back down into the third launch. This sends you up a half loop into a stalled Immelman with loads of hang time, before you twist to the left and enter another LSM boost. You then experience a double up element that finishes into a dive loop to the right, which takes you into the final forwards launch. You're then powered through a 0G roll and up the second vertical rollback. Next you fall backwards and do the reverse, passing through the 0G roll, getting boosted into the reverse dive loop, carrying on into a double down, before the final launch sends you backwards into the stalled Immelman, once again experiencing incredible hang time. You then drop backwards through the station, where you slow down slightly before going up the spike in reverse again, and then gently gliding down into the station, and the ride comes to a stop. My first ride impressions of the Flash were very positive. I was in the middle, slightly towards the front, and what struck me the most was the awesome airtime and hang time you get all through the ride. On subsequent rides, I got to experience it in a variety of seats, and one of the best things about this coaster is how the experience differs significantly from the front row to the back. The initial reverse rollback isn't that impressive in the front, but in the back it feels like you're getting a good 4 seconds or so of weightlessness as you go up and then down the spike. Similarly, the second time you go up the spike, the front provides the more impressive experience, but it's not just those elements that you notice the difference. Because this coaster has a lot of boosts and rollbacks, the speed you go through elements varies significantly, and there are a couple of moments where this really stands out. In the front, the 0G roll feels incredibly snappy as you fly through it at top speed. It's almost like the old 0G rolls you used to get on B&Ms, where it feels like the element is taken a bit faster than it probably should be. Similarly, the backwards double down on the return journey gives insane airtime in the front when you go over it backwards. The back row also provides some unique moments too, with the highlight being the dive into that 5th boost, where it feels like you're being dragged down into it by the rest of the train. One thing that everyone seems to rave about, however, is the hang time this coaster has in that stalled Immelman element. I wasn't sure how it would feel to ride, but I'll tell you now, it's a great element. There's a gradual transition from the positive G as you pull up, into some weightlessness as you invert, followed by sustained hang time as you dangle upside down, and the coaster builds up speed again. It's probably a good point here to talk about the restraints. I've heard some people are not a fan of the modern Vekoma vest-style restraints, as they restrict your airtime, but to me this isn't something that I find is the case. There's a limit to how much they will let you fly up out of your seat, but for me, you still get a good feeling of the airtime. I do wonder if this may depend on your weight or build, however, as it could be the case that if you're particularly lightweight, then there won't be as much movement in the vest, so you might feel like it's pushing you down more. In general though, I find these new generation Vekoma trains and restraints perfectly comfortable, and I've got no issues with them. There was, however, one slight issue with the trains during my visit. There was a slight downer, in that the onboard audio, which it's supposed to have, just didn't work, and I visited the park 3 times over the course of my recent American trip. The onboard lighting did, however, work, and I have to say it really looks rather cool, in the dark especially as the train races by. I only had one ride in the dark, but it was great fun. Apart from the trains, there's also some theming in the area around the ride as well, and whilst it's what you would probably expect from a Six Flags park, it's at best minimal. In some areas it feels a bit unfinished, as there's a large shed that you go through whilst queuing. It's got a raised platform at the front of it, almost as if there's meant to be some sort of display or animatronic there. There is some audio here that explains the ride's story as something to do with the Speed Force, but when you're inside the echoey shed with a bunch of other people talking, it's nearly impossible to make out what it's saying. There's also the usual comic book character information posters that a bunch of other Six Flags hero rides have on the walls, but that's really about it when it comes to theming. Apart from the obvious Flash logo at the top of the ride, which I'll get back to later. Now on to the negatives, and there's one major one. Capacity. Because this is a shuttle coaster, it only runs one train, and that train has to complete a full cycle and be unloaded before you can start seating the next group. That group can only be a maximum of 24 riders as well, as the train consists of 6 cars which each contains 4 seats. This is actually one area where the original Boomerang is superior to this version, as its trains had an extra car for a total of 28 riders. Now on their website, Vekoma lists this ride's hourly capacity as 800 people. This doesn't sound too bad, as the original Boomerang has slightly fewer at 760, probably due to the slow lift hills compared to the Super Boomerang's launches. Now, for 800 people to ride in an hour, that requires 33 1/3 trains to be dispatched, which means each cycle has to be completed in 1 minute and 48 seconds. The actual ride part of the cycle itself is about 1 minute and 3 seconds, give or take, so Vekoma believe that the train can be unloaded, reloaded, secured and checked in just 45 seconds. Now, going back to that target time of 1 minute and 48 seconds between trains, how close do you reckon Six Flags got to that number? Go on, take a guess. I timed multiple dispatches during my visit, and the fastest one I observed was about 2.5 minutes, with the average cycle time being around the 3-minute mark, and often it was even longer than that. This gives a capacity of less than 500 people per hour, although with the frequent longer dispatch times, I would be very surprised if they actually had a capacity that was over 400, and all of this is assuming they managed to fill the train, which was definitely not the case. There are frequently 2 or 3 empty seats on every train, and with no single rider line to fill them, and poorly organised batching, this probably means that the real-world capacity of this brand new coaster is under 350 people per hour, which is woeful. I can't blame the ride ops too much for this. For the most part, they seemed reasonably engaged and were working hard, but the ride was only being operated by 2 people. One person to operate the control booth and check the front half of the train restraints, and another person to check the rear half of the train. I almost felt sorry for the poor guy running back and forth between the control booth and the restraints, but surely this just isn't enough people to properly operate a ride, especially one with this low capacity. The queue line always moved incredibly slowly, as in addition to the slow dispatches, there seemed to be an endless stream of FastPass users that filled up every train, so the main line moved at absolute snail's pace. The design of the queue is really annoying as well. There's a large area outside the ride to house a queue, however this isn't really used, and instead of that there's a shed of mystery, which you might just walk straight through, or it could have hundreds of people inside it, and there's no way to see inside before you join. This makes estimating how long you're likely to wait nearly impossible, as there's no way to tell how many extra people are in that shed before you enter it. Even once you escape the shed, the amount of time you wait is highly variable, for the reasons I've mentioned, and one time it took about 45 minutes for the line to move just 50 feet. Another really frustrating thing about the queue design is how they've implemented their loose article policy. No loose items are allowed in the ride at all, including anything in a zipped pocket, but at least 3 letterbox-sized lockers are provided to store your phone and keys. The main problem with this, apart from it being one of 20 different ride-specific loose article policies at Great Adventure, is the point where you have to lock up your phone and keys is before the Shed of Doom. so you can't use your phone when you're stuck inside that shed, which can be for 45 minutes or even longer. This makes a long queue feel even worse, and it would make so much more sense to have the loose item locker just before the ride, or at least to have the dismal shed located before this point. Some managerial choices around this ride really are baffling. You know, they say all ride-ops are trained and motivated equally, but you look at Velocicoaster and you look at Six Flags and you see that statement is not true. See, normally a ride should operate at 100% capacity, but with too few ride-ops, it'll be 75% at best. Now you add empty seats to the mix and that ride capacity drastically goes down. So a ride at Great Adventures operating at a 66 2/3 capacity. But you know there's going to be random breakdowns, so take that 66 2/3 and minus 25%, and then take away another 33 1/3% for all the people using FastPass. And it's clear this ride has a 141 2/3% chance of having shit capacity. See, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for your wait time. It's almost surprising that Vekoma haven't done something to address this capacity issue. A turntable or switch track couldn't be that hard to build into this design, but Vekoma don't seem to have it as an option on their website. Mr. Free's Reverse Blast solved this problem of launch shuttle coasters over 25 years ago, so to not factor that into a new coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure, which can get incredibly busy, is madness. It's actually got me wondering who Vekoma has designed this coaster for. It's slightly too large and too expensive for a small park to construct, but similarly its capacity is so low that it's not a sensible choice for any larger park. Cynics might even think that it's designed to encourage people to buy fast passes, but who knows. In some ways though, I can see the appeal of this ride to Six Flags. The nature of it having a prominent large central section where you can stick a logo makes it very easy to retheme with minimal effort. Switch the track colours and that logo when it could be themed to the Joker, Batman, Superman, or just about anything you can imagine. The reliability of the ride seems a bit hit and miss as well. I accept that it's new, but it was supposed to open last year, so they really should have ironed out any operational issues by now. There seemed to be quite a few breakdowns, although this did sometimes work to my advantage if I could time it right to join the line just after it had reopened after it had broken down. The ride also valleyed once when I was there, where it didn't make it back through the dive loop and became stuck on the third set of LSMs. In order to get the ride back to function, they had to evacuate the whole train before initiating a swing launch to get it back to the station. It's almost a shame that they don't just do a swing launch with people on board, as that would probably make up for the inconvenience of the valleying for the riders on board. But maybe it's a weight thing where unloading everyone makes it much more efficient to do that swing launch. So putting these issues aside, how does it compare to similar coasters? Personally, I think it's a huge improvement on the original Boomerang and Invertigo coasters Vekoma used to make. This is something you actually want to ride again and again, unlike most boomerangs. There is also the giant inverted boomerang though, and it's honestly quite tricky to compare these, as in my opinion, giant inverted boomerangs are some of the most intense roller coasters around, and the sort of thrill they deliver is just vastly different from the floaty airtime inversions you get on the Flash. There are a few other boomerang-style shuttle coasters that are worthy of comparison as well, such as the Bullet, Cobra, or even the classic Schwarzkopf shuttle loop. But that's actually giving me an idea for a different video, so if you want to know how I rank them, keep an eye out for that. So overall, I did really enjoy riding the new Super Boomerang. I just hated queuing for it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and do the usual YouTube stuff if you'd like to help the channel out. I've been Rollercoaster David, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.